All right, thanks everyone. This is going to be the Pangborn Valley Civic Association virtual candidate forum. So we appreciate everyone who is attending. So I'm just going to run through a few preliminary matters and then we'll get started. So joining me are members from the Pangborn Valley Civic Association Board. We've got Rigby Duncan, our secretary, Diane Lewis, our treasurer, and Angela Barnett as our VP, who may have a conflict but is going to try to get on board. We're also recording this session and we're going to post it on YouTube and circulate it to the members who can't attend. So just a few ground rules. Everyone's on mute right now. And when we get to your race, we're going to unmute all the candidates in the race. So we just ask you to keep that in mind. We're going to start with a stump speech. Everyone will have the chance to give their stump speech. And we have allotted 2 minutes for that. So please excuse any interruptions because we're trying to stick to the timeline. So we will be stopping folks at the 2-minute mark. We're going to go on the stump speeches. We're going to go in order of the way people appear on the ballot. And then after everyone has a chance to give their stump speech, we're going to do some questions. And then we'll change up the order the candidates give for those questions. And we'll let you know how long we're allowing an answer for the question. But generally, we're talking about 1 minute to 1 minute and 30 seconds for the answers. If you're running against an incumbent and you do say something critical of that incumbent pretty specifically in an answer, we're going to give the incumbent about 30 seconds to briefly respond to this. But just keep in mind, this is not a debate. We're here because, to get a chance to know you and also for you to tell us why you're the best choice for office. And then when we get to sheriff, I think sheriff is a little confusing because if you pick a primary ballot, you're going to have 2 spots where you vote for a sheriff. For tonight, we are doing sheriff for the special election. So we have all the candidates for sheriff tonight. And so you may, depending on if you're in the primary section of the ballot, you won't see all the candidates. So just keep that in mind. There's 2 spots. So for partisan ballots, there are 2 spots on the ballot for sheriff. So with that, we're going to start with the Georgia Supreme Court races. There are 2 races where there's opposition to a sitting justice. And so we're going to tackle the Justice Bethel seat first. And just to keep in mind for the voters, the Supreme Court is an appellate court in Georgia. So some cases like felony murders, they get directly appealed from the trial court to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court of Georgia also acts a little bit like the U.S. Supreme Court in that it reviews cases from the Georgia Court of Appeals, and parties have to ask for permission to have those cases reviewed, and the court has to agree to review them. So these are, all the seats are important, but that's just to put it in context because there are a lot of judicial races on the ballot this year. So with that, we're going to have Elizabeth Beskin and Justice Charlie Bethel are the 2 folks running in that race. I'm going to find you guys and unmute you, and then we are going to start with the stump speeches. And then you should be able to see, I've got gonna have a timer here to kind of keep everyone on track. Let's see. Sorry, just having a little technical difficulty trying to get back to the all right, well, for some reason, when I share, some screens go away. So I'm just going to have to leave it to folks on their stump speech to monitor yourself. And I will, but I'm going to interrupt when you hit the 2-minute mark. So let's see, Ms. Beskin and there we go, Justice Bethel. All right, Ms. Beskin and Justice Bethel, can you guys hear us and you're on audio okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
And Justice Bethel?
Yes, I can hear you, Nicholas, and I certainly don't want to tell you how to manage it. I will tell you, if you share your screen and then everybody drags their gallery view, they should still be able to see one another and the clock. I mean, it's up to you. Sharing of screens is a difficult thing in Zoom, but you do it however you see fit, obviously, is the right way to do it.
Yeah, I will, let me try, I'm gonna try one more thing, because when I shared my screen, I lost the ability to manage the mute, unmute. But let me try it one more time and see if I can keep that together here. There we go. Okay. All right, so for the stump speech, Ms. Beskin, if you want to start with your 2 minutes.
Okay, I'm Beth Beskin. I'm running for the Supreme Court of Georgia. And I'm here today to tell you briefly why I'm running for the Supreme Court, why I'm challenging an incumbent, and why I think I'm the best qualified candidate in this race. First, my clock seems different than yours, Nicholas, so I'm going to start my own clock here. I'm running for the Supreme Court because I have a sincere desire to serve on the Supreme Court. I'm incumbent because I feel our constitution that our citizens elect our judges and justices one seat after another is filled by appointment. 8 of our 9 current justices were appointed. In the Fulton County Superior Court on March 13th, when the Attorney General was arguing the case I filed about the cancellation of the Justice Blackwell seat, Russ Willard, Assistant Attorney General, arguing for the AG, said that the time for citizens to express their will about an appointment is now. The general election after the governor appoints an appointee, my opponent, Justice Bethel here, was appointed at the end of 2018. So now is the time that Georgians have their opportunity to vet that candidate and decide for whom they are going to vote. I believe I'm the best qualified candidate in this race. I've practiced law for 30 years, 15 years as a family lawyer. I have years of experience doing employee benefit litigation. I served as an assistant attorney general. I'm currently a partner at Friedman, Mathis & Gary. I served in the General Assembly for 4 years, 2 of those at the same time as Justice Bethel, and 2 bills we voted on, I think, clearly show the difference in us as lawyers. There was a bill that would have allowed legislative counsel to participate in the judicial retirement plan. I voted against that bill because I don't work for the judicial branch. My opponent voted for it, the governor vetoed it. There was another bill that would have given firefighters a special exemption from the workers' compensation system. I thought that was legally wrong. I voted against it. My opponent voted for it. Governor Deal vetoed it. The following year, when that came back as an insurance bill, I was happy to vote for it. I believe that I'm a fair, rational, analytical, independent person, and I'm asking for your vote, and I look forward to speaking with you all tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Beskin. Justice Bethel was I think that this timer might be a little bit more of a distraction than a help, to be honest. So I think I'm gonna stop it. It's because I think there may be some delay, things like that. So if you don't mind, Justice Bethel, tracking yourself, that would be great. So
I will do my best to have a watch in front of me.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna restart it for 2 minutes, and the floor is yours.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Nicholas. Thank you to the Pangborn Valley Civic Association. A little bit of research tells me y'all are about 43 years in existence, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight and speak with constituents in this socially distant world. It's wonderful to get a chance to connect, and I appreciate that. Um, I have a sincere desire to serve as well. I would not have given up my career in the private sector. I would not have given up the things I was doing in the state legislature if it wasn't for a sincere desire to serve. And you know, Ms. Beskin, my friend, is correct that 8 out of 9 justices on our court were originally appointed. That's true. Of course, we had an open election not 2 years ago when Justice Ellington was elected to our court. I believe that I am qualified, and most is always in the eye of the beholder. I'm not going to play the game of who has more things in the column. I have represented defendants in criminal proceedings. I have prosecuted defendants in criminal proceedings. I've represented businesses. I've represented individuals, plaintiffs, defendants. I have worked in-house as an in-house attorney, which is something that is not present otherwise on our court. And I have been the plan administrator for a self-funded health plan, which is sort of a unique experience in and of itself. I live in Dalton, Georgia. This is Fort Mountain State Park behind me. I'm not physically there now, but I thought y'all might enjoy seeing the North Georgia mountains today. My family is from Georgia. My wife is a pharmacist. We have 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter. And as far as contrast, I think my friend Ms. Beskin knows that I cannot speak about policy issues, so I can't talk about bills that we voted on differently. I will hope that it's enough to say that Governor Deal entrusted me with this seat and has endorsed me in this race. So to the extent we had a disagreement about something in those days, I certainly believe that he saw fit to appoint me to this vacancy. And so I'm thankful for that.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our questions, and we're just going to reverse the order. So Justice Bethel, we're going to start with you.
Great.
And let's see, I wonder if I hold my timer like this, I know it's low tech, but I think that's how we'll proceed, just so everyone has an idea of where they stand in terms of the time. But this first question, we're going to allow 1 minute and 30 seconds to respond to it, which is not a lot, considering it's a little bit of a deep question and it's compound. So we'd like to know, what is your judicial philosophy, and how does that interplay with how you view the role of the Supreme Court? So Justice Bethel, with that, we'll let you take it away.
That's a terrific question. I think I could probably speak for it's probably easier to speak for a long time than a short time. My judicial philosophy is pretty straightforward. I adhere to what I consider the traditional American constitutional view of what judges do, and that is that we call balls and strikes. We apply the law. We make sure that the Constitution that the people adopted and ratified is upheld, that individual rights therein are protected. And then when we look at the code sections that come before us, the first question we ask is, are they constitutional? If they are, then they are to be applied and enforced as written, as drafted. To that end, I think that the constitutional role of our Supreme Court is exactly what I've just laid out. It's not to make new rules, make new laws. That is what the legislative and executive branches do on a routine basis. But it is not what I do now. I've done that in the past, but now my job is simply to be a steward of that law. So in as much as it relates to my job, I think that I have proven over the last several years, having served on the Georgia Court of Appeals and now on the Supreme Court, that that's exactly how I approach it. How I want a case to come out has no importance in the outcome of the case. It is what the people's law says, and that's the way I view my job and the way I'm going to continue doing it.
All right, thank you very much. See, and Ms. Beskin, the same question for you. Do you need it repeated?
No, but you might as well just repeat Justice Bethel's answer, because and he is my friend. So thank you for that. I think we have a similar judicial philosophy. I would say simply, I believe it is the job of a judge or a justice to apply the law as written. I've said on the campaign trail that I think some judges are applying the law as they were wishing it were, or as they were wishing it to be, and that is not the job of a judge. I've been a lawmaker before. That's not the job I'm running for now, and I understand the difference. And I do think the Code of Judicial Conduct requires judges and justices to be fair and impartial. As Justice Bethel said, to read the law and apply the law. And I've often said that I think the answer, the opinion should be the same regardless of the judge or justice deciding the case if the judges are being true to the law. So I agree that I will adhere to the law and the statutes as passed by the General Assembly. I do think that justices have a big opportunity through concurrence opinions to direct the legislature matters they may want to take up, a law they may want to amend, laws they may want to pass to ameliorate or address some sort of injustice that they perceive with the decision they have felt compelled to render because of the law and the Constitution as written.
All right, thank you very much for that. So we're going to move on to our next question, and it's going to be our final question. And it's another 1:30 question. But we would like to know, because I think it's difficult for us to kind of differentiate between candidates for judges and justices. We don't get a lot of time to get to know you guys. So with that 1:30, if you would let us know what distinguishes you from your opponent, meaning why should someone choose you to serve as a justice on the Georgia Supreme Court? And we're going to start, Ms. Beskin, we're going to start with you on that one.
Thank you, Nicholas. I do think that it's fair, although Justice Bethel mentioned he can't talk about policy issues when I was talking about the two bills where we voted differently. I think justices frequently cite the Code of Judicial Conduct and say they can't talk about issues, and sometimes that's very convenient. But the Code of Judicial Conduct says judges can comment on matters if they pledge to be fair and impartial when they come before the court. I do think that judges and justices bring their individual experiences with them to the court. And for me, that will be my experience as a woman. I've been married to my husband for 36 years. We have two daughters who are 26 and 29, a son-in-law, a grandbaby on the way. I often say, I've got two daughters who have great jobs and they're off my cell phone plan. So that's the life experience that I will bring to the job. And I think that, as I said before, through the writing of concurrence opinions, can often nudge the legislature in a way that might not happen if that particular judge or justice weren't on the court. I do think it's fair to look at things I've done in my past. And for me, that was legislation I voted for, sponsored, or how I voted when I served in the legislature, not saying how I would rule on it when that matter came before the Georgia Supreme Court. But I think that it is fair to look to my legislative background. And I don't know how much time I have, Nicholas. What is my time there?
You have 12 seconds.
So I would ask that the viewers look to my legislative record and see if you see there a kindred spirit, because I would submit that you do, and that I would take those values to the Supreme Court, and I would greatly appreciate your vote.
All right, thank you very much. Let's see, and with that, Justice Bethel.
Same question, right?
Same
yeah, you don't need to repeat it. Thank you, Nicholas. Well, so I'll start by saying this. The first race I ever ran in politics was for city council in my hometown. And I ran against a friend, and he is still my friend, and I am not against anybody. So this whole, better than, or those sorts of things, it's just not who I am. It's not how I was raised. And I don't hear my friend Beth Beskin saying that either. And so I'm not going to sort of tell people why I'm better. I will tell you what I bring to the table. That is years of experience in local government, having been a city council member, legislator, just like Ms. Beskin has been, practice law. I'm not as far along. I'm waiting on grandkids. We still are hoping for a few more years before that discussion takes place at our home. But we have similar experiences in that respect. I think that what I would point folks to as well in your community is people like your district attorney, Sherry Boston, has endorsed me. Your CEO, Mike Thurmond, has endorsed me. But then also Governor Deal and my old Senate colleague, Fran Miller, have endorsed me. And anybody who knows, and Senator Elena Parent and others within the DeKalb community. Anybody who knows those personalities know they're very different. They have different views of the world. But each one of those people has said, Charlie Bethel is the sort of person we want in this role, calling balls and strikes, upholding our Constitution and our laws. And I hope that's good enough for the voters. If it's not, please reach out to me at your convenience. I'd love to answer your question.
All right, thank you very much. And I think that's concludes on an important point. The candidates do have websites. They do have, so if you guys want to just pitch your website really quickly so folks can look you up and reach out to you if they want. Ms. Beskin, I'll start with you.
Thank you. It's Beth Beskin, not BethBeskin.com. It's Beskin, not Baskin, Beskin.
All right, thank you. And Justice Bethel?
Thank you. It's charliebethel.org, and both of us also have social media presences, so you can reach both of us in that respect as well.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thanks for participating. And one thing I don't think I mentioned before was if your race is concluded and you want to drop off the call, you're free to do that. We understand everyone has a packed schedule, so we appreciate you taking your time to come out.
Thank you.
And with that, we're gonna move on to the next Supreme Court race, and that is the race to for the seat for Justice Warren, and that has Justice Warren, who's running as an incumbent, and Hal Moros. So I'm just going to find you guys on my list and unmute you. Let's see. Let's see, Justice Warren.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, so I'm just looking for Mr. Moros, I think. Let's see. Mr. Moros, did I get you?
Can you hear me?
I can. Yes, there you are. Okay. Great. Okay, so same thing as the previous segment. We're going to start with a 2-minute stump speech. We're going to go in the order that you appear on the ballot, and then we'll have the questions for follow-up. So we're going to start with the 2 minutes. I apologize for the low-tech timer, but Ms. Moros, we're going to start with you since you're first on the ballot.
All right, sir. My name is Hal Moros, and I want to say thank you for the invite. I'm honored to be here with Justice Warren, Justice Bethel, all the good folks here. I guess I'll start off by saying what I have to offer is experience in life and the law. I've served as a magistrate court judge. I served as a chief judge of a city. In the magistrate court, it was often called the court of last resort. And I know that traditionally is something we call a Supreme Court. But for the people who appeared in magistrate court, it was the court of last resort. And I'm familiar with that. People who cannot afford attorneys and who had small claims to hear before the court. I served the first 21 years of my adult life in the Army. I grew up in poverty. My father died when I was 5 years old. I realized what it means to fight for something. I have experience in life and the law. I've taught judges, lawyers. I've served here. I've lived in Georgia my entire adult life, except for the brief periods or extended periods of military service and service as a professor and in school. I offer these things because I believe I can relate that experience, practical experience, to being a justice on the court. I believe in the Constitution. In fact, I'm a strict constitutionalist. I understand what it means to serve. I've spent a life of service. I ask that you look for a Supreme Court justice with experience in life and the law. With that, I offer this as a service to Georgia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. See, and so Justice Warren, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And thank you for letting me be here with you tonight. It's a real pleasure to be able to connect with people after being indoors all day and homeschooling my 6 and 3-year-old kids during a pandemic. I'm Sarah Hawkins Warren. I'm from Georgia. I grew up here. I was raised in Atlanta. I live on the same street that I actually grew up on, but the opposite end to my parents are still down the street and very involved in my children's lives. I went to school at Duke for undergrad and also Duke University Law School. I clerked for 2 federal judges after law school, one here in Atlanta on the Federal Court of Appeals, one federal trial judge in Washington, D.C. I decided to stay in D.C. after working for that federal trial judge, working at a firm and working my way up from being an associate to becoming a partner. And in fact, was named partner at that firm shortly after coming back from my first maternity leave with my daughter. But I always wanted to return home. That opportunity arose when I started working for the state of Georgia. They became my client. And I decided that I didn't want to just work for Georgia as my client. I wanted to move home, maybe working from home here in Atlanta. So I left the partnership with my firm. My husband and I brought our small child back home to Atlanta, where I started working for the Office of the Attorney General on the water wars case in the U.S. Supreme Court, and then on other appellate matters. I was then named the Solicitor General for the state of Georgia. That's the state's top appellate advocate. And so I spent time briefing and arguing cases before the Georgia Supreme Court, and I argued before the 9 justices on the United States Supreme Court. Appellate advocacy was my expertise. I'm one of only 5 women in the history of our state to have ever served on the Georgia Supreme Court, which is a true honor. Working on the Georgia Supreme Court and serving in this way is truly the honor of a lifetime. I understand the gravity of my job. We decide cases about people's liberty, their livelihoods, and their families. When you come to our courtroom, you will get a fair opportunity with me. I am fair and impartial. I never decide cases on personal preference or opinion. Judges don't make the law, we interpret it as written. Thank you so much, and I look forward to earning your vote.
Thank you. And so now for the questions, and these are going to be the same questions that were presented in the previous segment. So for 1 minute and 30 seconds to respond. The first question is, what is your judicial philosophy, and how does that interplay with how you view the role of the Georgia Supreme Court? So,
Nick, I'm so sorry, but there was some noise on the second part of that question. Would you mind re-asking it?
yeah, not at all. Let's see. So I've got, what is your judicial philosophy, and how does that interplay with how you view the role of the Georgia Supreme Court? And so, Justice Warren, we're going to start with you for 1 minute and 30.
Sure. Well, you all might hear a chorus of some similar answers tonight. I believe very strongly in the separation of powers. We have a 3-branch system of government. I, as part of judicial branch, have a very limited role. It's an important role. I interpret the law and I apply it, and I interpret it as it's written. I don't try to make laws up or insert my own policy preferences into the role. But it's important to remember what that one branch of government does with respect to the other branches. If a judge, whether it's an appellate judge or a trial judge, but especially for an appellate judge, if a judge decides to insert personal preference or they try to rewrite things that aren't there, you are usurping from the legislative branch, democratically elected representatives of the legislative branch, their policymaking and their lawmaking function. And that is not at all what a judge should be doing. So I believe very strongly in that limited role that we have on the Georgia Supreme Court. We take it very seriously. What that means is sometimes you are surprised by the outcome of a case, because when you are merely interpreting the law as it's written and looking at the text and the context of that law and looking to the original public meaning of the Georgia Constitution or the U.S. Constitution, you let the law be your guide and nothing else.
All right. Thank you very much. So then we're, Mr. Morrows, it's going to be the same question to you. Do you need it repeated?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Then you have 1 minute and 30 seconds.
All right. My philosophy is simply this: a judge is there to decide cases based on the facts and the law, not much different from what Justice Warren said. My philosophy for a justice is this: they not only do that, but they're the gatekeepers for our entire state. In an appellate review, they decide issues And those issues are determinative of outcomes of a lot of cases. I didn't mention this before, but I'm also a district attorney, and I've argued cases. And it is frustrating to have certain issues here before appellate courts, and then to find out in truth that there is great deference shown to trial court judges for merely using magic words such as that trial court finds. With very few exceptions, does the Supreme Court go against that finding. Now, I intend to be a justice who's a gatekeeper, to scrutinize what trial court judges do. I believe in victims' rights. I believe in a judge being a strict defender of our individual rights and freedoms. That's what I'm about, and that's what I offer.
All right. Thank you very much. And out of my personal curiosity, Justice Warren, who did you clerk for on the 11th Circuit?
At the time, it was Chief Judge J.L. Edmondson. He was chief then. He's now a senior judge.
Yeah, I was in the staff attorney's office. So.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. So on to our next question, and maybe phrased slightly differently from before. But what, and it's another minute and 30 seconds for a response, but what distinguishes you from your opponent? Basically meaning, why should a voter select you to fill the seat for the next Georgia Supreme Court justice? And so, let's see, Ms. Moros, since we're going to start with you on this one, so we have a minute and 30 seconds on the clock.
Well, I don't think anyone can argue with Justice Warren's background, her pedigree, all incredibly powerful. I'm a great contrast. I went to a public law school. I did things rather untraditionally. I went to school when I was in the military, courtesy of the GI Bill. But what I offer is this, and that is a judge who is familiar with how the poor, the common man, and yes, even the rich conduct their lives and how they go about seeking justice. My goal, and what separates me, I'll go back to what I said, experience in life and the law. You can't replace that experience in life. I've served Georgia as a judge, a lawyer, a father, a worker, an entrepreneur for many decades. And that translates into experience and a common understanding of what all Georgians go through. I don't have that Supreme Court experience. I don't have the highfalutin schools or the private schools, but what I do have to offer is the diversity that is needed on the Georgia Supreme Court. If you believe a veteran can serve as a justice, a military veteran, then I ask for your vote.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Morrows. Let's see, and the same question, Justice Warren, and also a minute. Do you need it repeated?
No, sir, thanks.
Okay. And then a minute and 30 seconds.
Very good. Well, let me start off by acknowledging and thanking my opponent for his service to our country. That is a service that is unparalleled, and serving your country in the Army or any branch of the armed services is something that I truly value. Many members of my family have done so, and so thank you, Mr. Morrows, for doing that. I do believe in diversity on courts. I think that's really important. I think it would be a major omission to overlook my role as one of only 5 women who've ever in the history of our state served on the Georgia Supreme Court. And so that's something I'm proud of. That's not a reason in and of itself that you should vote for me. You should vote for me because I'm the best candidate. And I will say that, I respect tremendously people who have long and storied legal careers, but I think it's important also to acknowledge that the number of years that you practice law doesn't directly translate to your appellate experience and necessarily your preparedness for serving in a role like this. I have been very lucky. There's been a lot of serendipity in my life that has helped lead me to where I am. But even so far in my experience, I've had the opportunity to serve at the highest levels of federal government. I've had the opportunity to serve at the highest levels of state government, being the Attorney General's top constitutional law advisor and the state's top appellate advocate when I was the Solicitor General. those are the kinds of experiences that have prepared me to be on the court and to retain my seat for another 6 years on the court. I've recently argued, just as Mr. Moroz has, before our court, so I have empathy for people who come before my court. And when I look my kids in the eye when I go to work every day, I can tell them that I'm doing a job that matters to the people of Georgia, and I want to keep doing that job.
All right, thank you very much. And as we did with the last candidates, if you want to give a plug for your website or way to get in touch, Justice Warren, start with you.
Sure, my website's sarahwarren.com. That's Sarah with an H, so it's www.sarahwarren.com. And on Facebook, it's Georgians for Justice Sarah Warren. Thank y'all so much.
Great, thank you very much. Mr. Moroz, your website?
Yes, sir. My website is Moroz, MOROZLAW.com. And I also have a Facebook page. It's Hal Moroz for Justice on the Supreme Court of Georgia.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Very much for participating. We appreciate it. And we are now going to move on to the DeKalb Superior Court. We have 5 candidates running in that race. And just for the voters who, again, are maybe overwhelmed by the ballot this year with so many judicial races, the election for the Georgia Superior Court, Judge Seeliger is retiring. So all these candidates are running to take his place. There is no incumbent on the ballot this year for this race. The Superior Court is a trial court. It handles a wide variety of matters from civil issues to criminal issues. So it handles felonies, murder trials, divorces, child custody matters, and also other civil disputes. So as with the other races, I'm going to find you guys and let everyone be off of mute. And we're going to start with a 2-minute stump speech per candidate. We're going to go in the same order that everyone is in on the ballot, and then we will move on to questions. So let's see. Mr. Chosmer, Aaron Chosmer, I've got you.
Yes, sir.
All right, great. And then see, we've got Mindy Pillow.
Good evening, Nick. I'm here.
Great. Okay, and then Vincent Crawford.
Yes, I'm here.
Great. And let's see. Looks like I've got a Yolanda Parker Smith maybe on twice. So let's see.
I'm here.
Okay, great.
Good evening. One is for my video. I can't. My phone is not optimal.
Okay. I am hearing and seeing you. Okay. Are you hearing and seeing me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Super. And I apologize for the low-tech way we're having to time this. The screen share was presenting some lags and problems. Let's see. And I think Roderick Bridges. There we go. Almost my phone off. Okay. All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, good evening. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good.
That's good. Okay, so Mr. Bridges, we are going to start with you for your 2-minute stump speech. So you have 2 minutes on the clock.
Hello, I'm Roger Bridges, candidate for judge, DeKalb County Superior Court. Thank you to the Pangborn Valley Civic Association for giving me this opportunity to speak to you regarding my campaign for judge. Electing Roger Bridges as your next judge brings 21 years of legal practice, litigating complex cases in federal and state court. This experience includes handling criminal, civil, real estate, and family law cases in Superior Court. As an experienced trial attorney, I manage large, diverse caseloads, maintain the day-to-day operation of a law firm, all while making regular appearances in Superior Court on my client's behalf. Electing Roger Bridges as your next judge also brings over 13 years serving as your DeKalb County judge, a tenure that saw me preside over thousands of cases, delivering sound legal opinions. I implemented the court's first alternative sentencing program, reducing repeat offenders, saving taxpayers thousands of dollars, and made our community safer. I also oversaw the development of the court's first electronic case management system that improved the efficiency of the court while providing access to the public and increasing the court security. Elected Roger Bridges also brings someone that's deeply involved in the community. Currently, I serve as a human trafficking ambassador for the Interfaith Children Movement, where I lead the initiative to eradicate human trafficking through education, legislation, and prevention. Working with various nonprofit organizations, I mentor youth and provide clothing, food, and to families in need. As Vice President of the North Decatur Lions Club, I help provide vision screenings for kids and honor our police officers. I'm also a member of the DeKalb County Criminal Justice Committee, working to end money bail for nonviolent offenders and criminal justice reform. As you can see, a vote for Roger Bridges for judge will bring extensive experience from both sides of the bench and a legacy of lifetime service. On June the 9th, vote Roger Bridges, Judge, DeKalb County Superior Court. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And then we're going to move on to Mr. Trosmer.
Yes.
Trosmer, you have 2 minutes for your stump speech, so the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Aaron Chosmer, and I'm ready to become your newest Superior Court judge. Judge Seeliger is stepping down after 40 years, and I do want to recognize his contributions to our community. I'd also like to thank Nick Smith and each of you for the opportunity to talk with you today. I came to DeKalb County in 1991 to attend Emory University, and I've gladly called DeKalb home for 25 years. Over the last 20 plus years, I've practiced complex business and civil litigation in superior courts across the state. I've done it so with the firms, and I've done so as an entrepreneurial solo attorney. DeKalb has a good bench, but it lacks diversity of thought and experience. It needs someone like me with a substantive business law background. Judges talk, even about cases that are not assigned to them. And I will be an additional resource for the court. I want to bring a business focus on efficiency and effectiveness to the court, something it often lacks. I view the public as the court's clients, and I believe that the courts should consider them when functioning. They should be outward looking and how it affects them as opposed to simply how it operates. The court should be efficient and deal with cases promptly. It should be transparent about how it applies the law to the particular facts, and it should treat everyone fairly, with dignity, and with respect. I'm not able to tell you a lot about me in this short time, but you can learn more about me from Facebook Live videos and the 2 podcasts I've done, What's Up Dunwoody and Between Two Trains out of Chamblee. And I'm proud that I've been endorsed by Governor Roy Barnes, Georgia Equality, Mayors Lynn Deutsch and Pat Wheeler from Dunwoody and Stone Mountain, respectively. As a trial court, I will interact directly with the community, and I'm very excited to have been endorsed by the public's representatives at City Council. Thank you very much. I hope that you like what you see and support me too. Nick, I think you're muted.
Thanks. All right, sorry about that. We're going to move on next to Mr. Vincent Crawford.
Hi, I am Chief Judge Vincent Crawford. I'm the Chief Judge of DeKalb County Juvenile Court. I started my practice off in public interest law. In law school, I practiced with Georgia Legal Services and did an internship also with the Public Defender's Office. Leaving law school, I started out my career with Georgia Legal Services, and I was a practicing attorney there representing indigent clients in proceedings, as well as representing women that were the victims of domestic violence and divorce proceedings. I then went on to become an assistant district attorney in Augusta, Georgia, worked there 2 years in the Violent Crimes Division, multiple defendants, doing murder, armed robberies, all kind of offenses. I came to DeKalb in 1995, was hired by then DA J. Tom Morgan, worked in the DA's office for 2 years. I then went on to open my own practice for approximately 7 to 8 years, also still doing public interest law, working with parents in juvenile court, representing them when their kids are taken by the Department of Family and Children's Services. I then went on in 2005, I was appointed as associate magistrate, and then went on to become juvenile court judge in 2006. I've been on the juvenile court bench 14 years now, currently serving as the chief judge. I also sit by designation in Superior Court as a Superior Court judge, hearing both criminal, civil and domestic proceedings, and I've been doing that for 7 years. And so I have been working now with the task force during this pandemic of all the chief judges of all the courts, working on the new normal that we will have after the pandemic. I've worked diligently with the courts in transforming juvenile court and coming up with a system that transformed us to be the only data sharing case management system called CPRS2 in the United States. And I got invited to the White House by Barack Obama to explain that system. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Let's see, we're gonna move on to Ms. Yolanda Parker-Smith.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, and
Okay.
2 minutes, there you go.
Thank you. My name is Yolanda Parker-Smith, and I'm running for DeKalb County Superior Court Judge. I'm a proud 17-year resident of DeKalb County, Georgia. I have decades of courtroom and litigation experience. I have experience on the prosecutor side and public defense side. I also have experience dealing with diversion courts. I have assisted literally thousands of families and children. I'm a lifelong community servant. I am a servant, and I want to continue being your servant as a DeKalb County Superior Court judge. Judges are servants, and servants where they can take your property, they can take your freedom, they can take your life, and you won't make it not decision. As a public defender, too often, everyday people say the concept of justice is missing. As a public defender, I have always focused on ensuring justice for all people. Over the years, I've counted hundreds of people who scoff at the idea that everybody can receive fairness and justice. Too often, fairness and equality only apply to the rich and the powerful. Too often, the poor and the vulnerable are treated unfairly and with bias. The ideal towards a fair and balanced just system motivated me to run for this important position. The biggest issue I see is the lack of credibility in the courts. Lack of credibility has basically undermined the integrity of the courts. The courts should be the one place where all citizens know that decisions are based on objective reasoning and facts, not race, not gender, not income. Criminal, it just doesn't matter. As a Superior Court judge, they preside over criminal matters, domestic matters, and property issues. Superior Court judges make decisions affecting the life, liberty, and happiness of all citizens. Decisions that can impact all the citizens have a very lasting impact. I want to restore fairness, equality, and confidence and integrity in our court system. As your next DeKalb County Superior Court judge, compassion, courtesy, and community. My creed and my promise as your next DeKalb County Superior Court judge, Yolanda Parker-Smith. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and now with the next candidate, we have Mindy Pillow. And Ms. Pillow, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick, and thank you to the Pangborn Valley Civic Association for the invitation for all of us to speak tonight. It is an interesting time campaigning in a pandemic, so we're very appreciative of your time and letting us kind of get our message out. My name is Mindy Pillow, and I'm running to also, as we are, for Judge Seeliger's seat as he retires after 40 years. The reason that I am running twofold. Number one, I'm a family law attorney. That's what I've done exclusively since 2011. Prior to that, I practiced complex business litigation with Kilpatrick Townsend. I started practicing family law in 2011 with Davis, Matthews, and Quigley, and then went on my own in 2013. My office is here in Decatur. I have married to a high school math teacher, and I have 2 teenage children in the Decatur school system. So we have been in DeKalb for 21 years and have been in, actually not far from y'all, we lived on Bonanza Drive when we first moved to DeKalb County and have just loved it. So I also have a deep commitment to our community. I am a graduate of Leadership DeKalb, and I serve on a board of directors for Leadership DeKalb. I am past president of the Junior League of DeKalb County. I am a member of the board of directors for Metropolitan Counseling Service, which provides sliding scale and mental health counseling to people who otherwise couldn't afford it. I'm on the board of directors of the DeKalb History Center. I'm also on the board of directors for the Georgia Association of Women Lawyers, and I'm the former president. And as far as expertise in my field, I am the immediate past chair of the Atlanta Bar Association Family Law Section. The number of family law cases coming through DeKalb County far outnumber the criminal cases, as well as other, which is contracts, real estate, anything, equity cases, anything that doesn't fall into those categories. We at this point have a very excellent bench here in DeKalb County. We do not have someone with expertise in family law. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we're going to move on to the questions. And like last time, we're just kind of moving up and down the ballot. Since we went top to bottom, we're going to just flip the order and move bottom to top for this first question. And you'll have 1 minute and 30 seconds to respond. When I get to you, if you need me to repeat the question again, please let me know. But otherwise, I'm going to assume that I can just ask it once for the group. So we're going to start with you, Mindy, and the question is, what do you see your role as a Superior Court judge to be, and how will you use that role to contribute to all of DeKalb County?
Certainly. I think the role of a Superior Court judge in DeKalb County, of course, is to efficiently move the docket along. There are a number of cases that come before the Superior Court, as we discussed, and you have to efficiently move that docket along. People cannot wait for years to be able to be heard by a judge. In addition, I think you need to be an active and a valuable member of our community here in DeKalb County. You need to be a role model to youth. You need to be willing to speak. You need to be willing. We've always asked DeKalb County judges in my 5 years as a mock trial coach to please stay until 7 o'clock at night and do a mock trial judging session for us. I've never had a DeKalb County judge refuse to do so. I think those are the most important roles that you play in DeKalb County, and I'd be honored to serve that role.
All right, thank you very much. So let's see. So Ms. Parker-Smith, we're going to move on to you with the same question in 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Thank you. I see my role as a Superior Court judge as, of course, an individual who presides over matters in criminal matters, civil matters, as well as property issues, issues of equity. However, I think it's extremely important that we realize that Superior Court judges should be held accountable for their actions inside the courtroom and outside the courtroom as well. We also need to recognize that as a judge, we need to make sure that the credibility and integrity of the system is at its highest peak with the community that we serve, because again, you are a servant. Also, we need to realize as a Superior Court judge, your role is to ensure that justice is served for all DeKalb County. It shouldn't matter if you're at Gresham Road or Gresham Park or Tilly Mill or Flakes Mill. You should make sure that fairness and justice is applied to all people that come before the court, but also recognize that justice can occur outside the four walls of a courtroom. You should be able to institute preventative intervention and prevention programs in order to assist the community in adjudicating and making sure that things are going justly and fairly to all people. I think it's extremely important that you remain inside the community, be involved and invested in the community as a role model for all individuals in the society.
All right, great. Thank you very much. And now next we're going to have Judge Crawford. Let's see. Judge, so 1 minute and 30 seconds for the, and if you need me to repeat the question, just let me know.
No. I have seen the system over the last 25 years of practicing here in DeKalb move from a system of crime and punishment to addressing the issues that bring people into court, which are our veterans. Now we have veterans court, mental health court. We've had all those courts in juvenile court before they started in Superior Court. So what we've learned also as being judges is we've learned that we have to collaborate with community resources actually to keep those courts running and operating. I've been over the truancy project trying to make sure that young people stay in school. I've been on Georgia mock trial coach as well as a Georgia mock trial judge on many occasions. What I'm finding though is that we have to network with the communities. We have a youth bill, a $3 million bill grant that we have now in June where we're working with young people 16 to 24. I'm in charge of that, that grant, and we're trying to get them educated and employed in the community so that they can be responsible citizens. I'm working also through my fraternity with our mentoring program, getting young men from 3rd through 12th grade to finish high school and actually go off to college. And we've been very successful over the last 13 years that I've been working with that program. I think right now it has to be a collaboration of resources to actually, and that's my role right now as judge, collaborating resources with the court.
All right, thank you very much. Let's see, and Mr. Chosmer, so 1 minute and 30 seconds on the clock.
Great, thank you. So in responding to what the role is, I would break it down into 3 categories or 3 topics. First, resolving disputes. That's what judges do. They resolve disputes, and too often, unfortunately, sometimes judges don't always do that. What they'll do is, while motions sit, legal rights don't change, but the reality changes. People have legitimate, real problems with that. They can't get financing. They don't collect monies that's owed. So there's a real world consequence. So I want to resolve disputes and do so promptly. Second, I think a judge serves as the conscience of the community. There are many times when, whether in criminal or even in the civil, the judge has discretion to make certain decisions or impose sentences or whatever. And I think in that regard, where they have that discretion, they serve as the conscience of the community here in DeKalb County. They should look at it through that filter. And third is outreach. I think it's very important that the courts build confidence in the legal system. You can see sometimes it getting lesser when in terms of criminal matters. People have it in civil matters where they don't feel like they're going to be treated fairly. So I want to do that. And also education, to the extent we can do some outreach with the community, high schools, and tell them what a court does, I think will be very helpful.
All right, thank you very much. And then we have Mr. Bridges with 1 minute and 30 seconds on the clock.
Thank you, Nick. The role of the judge is the constitutional gatekeeper of the laws of the state of Georgia and the federal government. We must ensure that each individual that comes before the court, citizens have trust and faith in the court and understand that their case will be heard in a timely manner and that they will be given the respect, the dignity and respect they deserve when they come before the court. I think the court is the judge in the Superior Court is a servant of the public and cannot just sit behind the bench. They must leave the bench, get out into the community that they actually are there to serve, to understand what's going on in the community and how their decisions impact that community. Many people, citizens, have a distrust for the community, for the court. And by us getting into the community and actually spending time with the individuals that our decisions impact, we can restore their citizens' trust in the court. We do need to understand there are certain individuals that come before the court are going to have some special needs that we as a court must be compassionate and try to adjust. We cannot just be punitive and punish people. We must look for alternative means to address their issues and get them the treatment that they need. I'm proud that our court, the DeKalb County Superior Court, recently instilled the Accountability Court, and they have various means to address mental health, drug abuse, and other issues that come before the court on a regular basis. Now, I understand that the reason I understand the position of the role is something I've seen across the state, and that's what I would bring from my experience to the bench and play that role in a very positive manner.
Thank you very much. All right, so moving on to our next and final question for the DeKalb Superior Court race with a minute to respond. What is one of the biggest challenges facing the judiciary today, and how are you uniquely qualified to tackle it? So, and again, if you need me to repeat the question, please let me know, but Mr. Bridges, we're gonna start with you.
Currently, it's the pandemic. Has the biggest impact on the court right now. We will be changing from the old procedures where we had in-person court to more using Zoom and other technologies to ensure that individuals are safe and healthy. I have a master's in public health from Tulane University School of Tropical Medicine. I understand pandemics, I understand the impact they have, and I understand the importance of keeping the community safe. I understand the process of creating protocols to ensure that. You combine that with the 21 years of legal experience, 13 years of judicial experience, I'm uniquely situated to deal with this pandemic. Aside from the pandemic, we have a growing population, but yet we have the same amount of judges required to do the increased work. You need to be more efficient and effective. I practice all over the state, so I know what works and what does not work in a Superior Court. And I bring all that experience to the court if I'm elected on June 9th, 2020.
All right. Thank you very much. And Mr. Chosmer, same question with 1 minute.
Thank you. I think the biggest challenge facing the courts themselves is docket and caseload management. The cases just keep getting higher. The case volume is getting larger and larger. And at the same time, they're just getting rid of fewer and fewer cases. And unfortunately, that builds into a snowball effect where you can never really start peeling, getting that number down. Some of the things that I would do to move and increase efficiency, they're more on the procedural side. I don't like what we call as cattle calls, where everyone just goes and sits. I think you can do more expeditious if you do special set hearings or trials. I do not like, I think it was Mark Twain who said, it takes more to write less, or to paraphrase him. So I would impose page limits and minimize the ability to use reply briefs, because all that's paper that clogs the docket, and we can move quicker on things like that. So I would use administrative mechanisms to move it faster.
All right, thank you very much. See, and Judge Crawford, same question for you with 1 minute on the clock.
Currently, I serve with the other chief judges on the task force on how to get our courts back up and running. I had 3 days to shut down juvenile court and get everyone working remotely. We were able to successfully do that and still preserve the rights of children and families that come into the court. Understanding the Superior Court docket, I've worked at docket for 7 years now, and understanding that one of the major things coming out of this pandemic is the new normal. You have to understand each judge have 10 to 13 murder cases. We have about 130 murder cases a year. We're not going to have grand juries and jurors for a while, and therefore the cases this year are going to be added. So as of January of next year, each judge could have somewhere between 15 and 20 murder cases. I've prosecuted murder cases. I've defended murder cases. I've sat as a judge in Superior Court on murder trials. So I have the experience to handle this docket and the approach for the new normal for Superior Court. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. See, and Ms. Parker Smith, same question.
Do you mind repeating the question, Nicholas?
Not at all. What is one of the biggest challenges facing the judiciary today, and how are you uniquely qualified to tackle it?
I think one of the biggest challenges facing the judiciary today is actually the lack of credibility that our justice system has, to be honest with you, Nick. Community credibility is one of the biggest obstacles that we have. It appears that, again, the everyday person doesn't feel like they can actually receive justice in a court of law. The everyday person does not feels that if you have to be rich, you have to be powerful, you have to have a status in order to receive justice in a court of law. It doesn't matter how many cases or how big the docket is. It doesn't matter how efficient the process is. If it doesn't have the faith of the people and the community in which it serves, it means absolutely nothing. Judiciary is absolutely baseless. As a public defender, I'm aware of the disparities and inequalities and how the people feel as it relates to the incredible just injustices that they feel every day. And as a public defender, I've heard them say, we need to be treated fairly, we need to be treated with respect. As a public defender, I'm uniquely situated to understand how important it is that everyone who comes into a courtroom is treated with dignity, respect, and they know that you will be treated fairly, you can be treated equality, and you will be treated with fairness. It doesn't matter your race.
Thank you very much.
Your status. Thank you.
I'm sorry, your time
That's okay. That's okay.
And
That's
then
a big thing for me, credibility.
And then let's see, Ms. Pillow, 1 minute on the clock.
Certainly. I think the biggest challenge facing the DeKalb County judiciary today is the fact that there is a delay in especially family law cases moving through the court system. I agree with Mr. Bridges. The pandemic is a big issue right now, but especially in family law. We have people who have lost their jobs, who can't afford to pay their child support. We have people who have lost parenting time because a parent has refused to bring the child due to social distancing issues. These issues all are going to have to be dealt with as our courts get back up to speed. DeKalb County has done a good job as far as I've had contempt hearings on Zoom. I've had now a mediation, which is not court, but it was court ordered on Zoom. We're trying to use the technology we need. One thing that we may need to do is have a family law court like other counties do. The family law issues, just for by way of example, in 2019, 9,500 domestic cases, 3,200 criminal cases, and 2,100 contract or other cases. Family law is the biggest issue in DeKalb County.
All right, thank you very much. And so, as we did before, just give the candidates a chance to give your website or contact information, whatever you'd like to do. And we're just going to go up, reverse the order, Ms. Pillow.
Certainly. Again, I thank you all for your time this evening, very much so. I just want to, if you remember anything about me from this forum, it is my deep commitment to the DeKalb County community, the fact that I am a mother of 2 teenagers, so I understand what is kind of going on with the children who go through our court system, and also the fact that I am expert in family law. So those are the things that I bring to replace Judge Seeliger. Judge Seeliger was known as a champion of families, and I would like to continue that work that he has begun. My website is pillowforjudge.com. I have a Facebook page, of course. It is Mindy Pillow for Judge. I thank you very much, and I would appreciate your vote on June 9th.
All right, thank you very much. And Ms. Parker-Smith, website or contact information?
Kitty, thank you, Nicholas, for the opportunity to expound on my platform with the Civic Association. Again, my name is Yolanda Parker-Smith. I am a 20-year courtroom and litigation experienced attorney. I'm currently a public defender. I'm extremely passionate about service. I'm passionate about people, and I'm passionate about ensuring that integrity and credibility is returned to the judiciary in DeKalb County Superior Court. My website is www.electyolandaparkersmith.com. My creed is community, compassion, and courtesy. It's not just a creed, it's a promise that I will make sure that those 3 things are returned back into the DeKalb County Superior Court judiciary. Thank you so very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. And Judge Crawford, your website or?
Yes. Again, I am Judge Crawford, the Chief Judge of Juvenile Court. I've been practicing in DeKalb for 25 years, 30 years of practicing law. And you can go to my website, www.electvincentccrawford. At the website, you're going to see various things. You're going to see my history, my legal history, but I ask you to also hit on that tab that talks about my recognition and awards. You'll see several community-based awards that I've received. When I take that robe off and come off the bench, that I still have an obligation to the community to make change and make sure people don't come into the system. So I ask that you go to my site, www.electvincentccrawford.com. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then Mr. Chosmer.
Yes, thank you, Nicholas. Thank you, everybody, for your time tonight. I think you've got a great opportunity to learn more about us in the coming days. If you want to early vote, it started. You can do your absentee balloting. You can learn more about me at AaronChosmerforJudge.com, or you can go to Facebook, facebook.com/Aaron Chosmer, and go there. I've got some Facebook Lives. You can get some podcasts. You can really get to know more about me and what I think the role of the judge is. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Mr. Bridges.
Thank you, Nicholas, and the Pangborn Civic Association for hosting this forum. If people want to learn more information about me, you can go to electbridgesforjudge.com. On Facebook, it's just Bridges for DeKalb. And on Twitter or Instagram is Elect Bridges for Judge. So thank you once again, and I appreciate you all giving us this opportunity to speak to you.
All right, thank you. Thank you to all the candidates for DeKalb Superior Court for coming out or joining us via Zoom and educating us more about this race so we can make an informed decision. So next we are going to move on to the race for sheriff. Again, I said at the very beginning, sheriff is a little bit interesting this year because if you get a primary ballot, you're going to see sheriff in the primary section, but you're also going to see a special election for sheriff in the nonpartisan section of the ballot. So for our forum, we have we've invited all the candidates who are going to be in that special election section for sheriff. So if you get a primary ballot, you will have to vote twice. You'll have to vote for your party's candidate for sheriff as well as the special election for sheriff. So just keep that in mind as you're picking your candidate. And if you select someone but you don't see them on the ballot, it may mean they're in the special election part. They're not in the party primary section of your ballot. I think a lot of it, people may wonder what the sheriff does, and just a really high level highlight. The sheriff wears a lot of different hats in this county. The sheriff is responsible for operating the jail, but also maintaining security at DeKalb County courthouses, serving warrants, making arrests, and serving court papers, even in civil cases. So it's a job with a lot of responsibilities. So I'm going to go through my list and try to unmute everyone who is a candidate for sheriff so that we can get started with this next section. So let's see. Okay. Okay, let's see, I'm having some issues finding some folks on the list, but let me confirm who I've got here. I've got of Harold Dennis. How about Antonio Johnson?
Here.
Okay, great. And then let's see. So I've got Kyle Jones.
I'm here.
Great. Let's see. We've got Ruth Stringer.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. And then let's see. I've got Ted Golden.
Try the other one with the video.
Okay.
Because my.
Let's see, is that Ted Golden? Did that work? Let's see. Go on. How about Harold Dennis? Right, and then Sheriff Maddox.
Sheriff Maddox is here. Yes, sir. Thank
Okay,
you.
great.
Okay, how about now?
Is this Ted Golden? Great.
Yeah, my internet went down. I had to reset it.
Okay. Let's see. And then Carl Mobley.
I'm here.
Is it Mobley or Mobley?
Mobley.
Mobley. Okay. All right.
I'm coming on. I'm getting there. Yeah, I'm coming.
So I think the only one we've got. How about Harold Dennis?
I heard him talking.
Let's see. Yeah, I've got someone up here is Sabrina Dennis, which I'm assuming that's.
Who's on there?
And then also, did Geraldine Champion?
I'm here. I'm
Okay,
here.
great. And how about Adam Gardner by any chance?
Carol Dennis is here.
Okay, great. Okay, so it looks like we have, see, I know Mr. Gardner didn't RSVP, so I'm not sure if he joined or not, but so we will get started with this segment. So I appreciate everyone joining us this evening. This is a crowded field for a very important position in the county. So as with the other candidates, we're going to go in the order that's listed on the ballot for the special election. And we're going to start with a 2-minute stump speech. So hopefully you can see me on your screen because I will be holding up a timer to time the 2 minutes. But with that, so Mr. Dennis, we're gonna start with you, and you have the floor, and you have 2 minutes.
Yes, my name is Harold Dennis, and I'm running for sheriff of DeKalb County. And the reason why I'm running for sheriff of DeKalb County is because we need someone to lead DeKalb County's force with integrity, honesty, and respect. And I'm looking to bring that back to DeKalb County. Also with transparency. There's no transparency currently at DeKalb County Sheriff's Office, and we need to bring that back to DeKalb County. Not just for the citizens of the county, but for the men and women who serve that agency. So by electing me, Harold Dennis, for sheriff for DeKalb County, you'll be getting someone, a sheriff, that's a true leader, that's someone that's going to bring honesty and integrity back to the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office and protect those men and women at the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office. So I'm Harold Dennis, and I'm running for sheriff of DeKalb.
All right, thank you very much. So we will next move on to Geraldine Champion. Ms. Champion, you have 2 minutes, and you have the floor.
Yes, I'm here. This is what I bring to the table. I'm a 27-year police officer. In doing my policing, I was a foot beat, mounted patrol, special operation, robbery, aggravated assault, and the last 7 years was homicide detective. I was in military, I had 17 years in the military intelligence. I was the chief interrogator of my unit. That's the 273rd Military Intelligence. I also have a degree in criminal justice. I have 8 weeks of hostage negotiation. I didn't go by the classroom. I had 8 weeks of hostage negotiation, and I'm a hostage negotiator. My thing is, we need to vote for changes. If we do not vote for changes, then we got 4 more years of corruption. That's what I gotta say.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Champion. We did announce some rules in the very beginning that if you call someone out, we're going to give them a chance to rebut. So when we get to you, Sheriff Maddox, I'm going to give you a little bit of time on the clock if you want to address that contention.
Yes, sir.
But we're going to move on down with Mr. Golden. So, Mr. Golden, it is your floor with 2 minutes.
Good evening, voters of DeKalb County. We appreciate the Pangborn Association for hosting this event. My name is Ted Gold. I want to thank you for the opportunity to come into your homes and to give you a presentation on who I am and what it's all about with me running for sheriff. I'll direct you to my website to view information about me. What I really want to talk to you about is this place we call home. DeKalb County is a great place to live, work, and play. I've lived here for 30 years. I've raised my children here. I've volunteered the community here. I've been a PTA vice president, a booster club president, and served on various committees throughout this county. I think it's important that we look at this sheriff's office and understand that it is time for change. It's time for a new direction. I have a vision for this county that we can accomplish great things if we get the right person in office. I think working with local law enforcement is a key part to any sheriff who becomes a sheriff in DeKalb County. I think that criminal justice reform is a critical part of what needs to be done to heal the wounds that have been caused by criminal justice system that's gone awry. I think also the community engagement is a very critical piece for us to be able to work together to help our community to avoid even coming to the DeKalb County Jail. I think we accomplish these things by looking at the opportunities that I bring to the table. 28 years of law enforcement experience with the Drug Enforcement Administration as a special agent. The primary task for that job was to work with state and local law enforcement to stem the flow of drugs into this country and to your local communities. Also understand how critical it is that we work with the community. As your sheriff, I will engage with a Citizens Advisory Council, a Community Advisory Council, an Employee Advisory Council, a Business Advisory Council, and a Youth Advisory Council. The purpose for that is to listen. You know, people think that we know the answer to all the problems. We don't. We have to spend time listening.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Golden.
Say it again?
Sorry, I was saying thank you. Your time had expired.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. So now moving on to Antonio Johnson. Mr. Johnson, you have 2 minutes and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nicholas, and thank you, DeKalb County citizens, for allowing us to come before you in your homes today. My name is Antonio Johnson. I'm a native of Atlanta, Georgia. I moved to DeKalb County 25 years ago when I married my wife, whose family been in DeKalb County for over 120 years. I'm also a college graduate from DeKalb County. My wife and I, we have 2 sons who we've been raising in DeKalb County for 22 years and 14 years right now. I'm a 34-year law enforcement veteran. I served 32 years with Fulton County government, 19 years as a sheriff deputy major. In my last 12 years, I was the Fulton County Marshal, which I served 3 4-year terms, and I retired on January 1st of this year. I'm also a 21-year Air Force Reserve retiree. My law enforcement career and my military career ran concurrent. I did 17 years in security forces in the United States Air Force Reserve. In my last 4 years in the Air Force Reserve, I was the first sergeant of Headquarters Air Force. I'm FBI National Academy graduate, session 191st. And one of the things I love to do, I love coaching youth. I've been coaching youth sports in DeKalb County for almost 30 years, football, baseball, basketball. And I have managed over a $90 million budget, and I've been responsible for multi-million-dollar budget as the department head for 12 years as the Fulton County Marshal. I'm battle tested, and I'm ready to run for DeKalb County Sheriff because I have 4 things: accountability, transparent, and also youth enhancement. But the most important thing is community safeguard. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And next, we're going to move on to Mr. Kyle Jones. So, Mr. Jones, 2 minutes. on the clock, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, and thank you, Pangborn Valley, for hosting this forum. We're at a very critical time in DeKalb County as it relates to this sheriff's office. We have 9 candidates running for this office because they want change out in DeKalb. I've served in law enforcement for over 24 years in DeKalb County in various capacities, and I implore you to go to my website, Vote Kyle Jones, to see the capacities I served in and the numerous commendations and citations that I received from the previous chiefs in the DeKalb Police Department and also at the Sheriff's Office. Since 2000, I was a part of the Darryl Brown investigation, and Darryl Brown was vowed to clean up the corruption in DeKalb County, and it very much has not changed since then. We face the same corruption that relates as the awarding of contracts, the same stronghold over bonding companies. My background has been in internal affairs with the DeKalb Police Department, Marta Police Department, as well as also running the Fraud and Financial Crime Unit, being the commander for DeKalb Police. I've investigated corruption in DeKalb, and I held law enforcement, I held public officials accountable. I put them in jail when it was necessary to do such. At the very critical time that we're in now, we need a sheriff that's going to lead that agency based on their own vision and not a vision of a previous sheriff. We need a sheriff that's going to stand tall and represent the men and women and lead them through the turmoil that place has been in since 2000. We need to improve DeKalb, the quality of the service that the sheriff's office provides. The employees need to be given a livable wage in order to take care of their families, and they also need to have a career path in order to keep them there. And as your sheriff, I plan to do those things and hold those individuals accountable.
All right, thank you very much. See, and next up we have Melody Maddox. And Sheriff Maddox, since we announced a rule at the beginning that said if someone brought some allegations against an incumbent, we'd give them a little bit extra time to respond to those. So this, for your opening stump speech, is 2 minutes. So you have 2 minutes and 30 seconds. If you want to take any of that time to address the allegations of corruption, you're welcome to do so. So Sheriff Maddox, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. PVCA, Pangborn Valley Civic Association, thank you so much for being on this forum, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be able to address such. Let me just say this. I took office as the sheriff on December 1st, 2019. So as far as any allegations are concerned, I'm not familiar with any allegations of the past. I can only speak for what has taken place on December 1st until now. And just to give you a little bit about me, I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia. I grew up in the DeKalb County area, still own in a family house in the Kirkwood area. I own my house in DeKalb County. I went to Sky Haven and Meadowview Elementary School. I'm committed, I'm dedicated to DeKalb County. I graduated from Morris Brown College with a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology. I have 2 masters. My daughter was educated at Redan High School, and my grandchildren are being educated in the DeKalb County school system. And just also my career path started with the DeKalb County Sheriff Office as a detention technician. After detention technician, I went over to DeKalb County Police Department, where I worked for 11 years as a DeKalb County police officer. I was with the crime analysis unit, and I also worked on the truancy team. After that, I left from there and took my skills over. I was to start up a police agency, which is Georgia Piedmont Technical College, formerly DeKalb Technical College. And I headed up 6,000 students, 10 campuses ranging through 3 different jurisdictions, from Monroe County all the way over to Beaufort Highway. So I've handled the multi-million-dollar budget. I'm a hostage negotiator. I am a defensive tactics instructor. And as your sheriff, my work speaks for itself. I am the sheriff of DeKalb County. I've worked in here. My work speaks for itself. I'm in a pandemic. I'm the only sheriff who has handled a pandemic and who is excited to say that as of right now, that we have no COVID in this jail. Again, my work speaks for itself. And I have I'm responsible for, I'm on the Domestic Violence Task Force, I'm sorry. And I also have an organization called Woman to Woman Personal Awareness and Safety Training. This training is where I go out and give free self-defense classes to women, free of charge, and it's about situational awareness. So I am committed, I am dedicated, I'm doing the job, and I'm just asking to stay the sheriff so I can continue to do the job that I have been doing with trust, accountability, leadership, integrity, and respect. We are one county and we must come together as one county with one vision. Thank you.
Thank you. And then next we're going to move on to Mr. Mobley. And this is your stump speech with 2 minutes on the clock, and the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you for having us. We greatly appreciate the honor. My name is Carl Mobley. I'm a candidate for sheriff. I'm a lifelong resident of DeKalb County. I have to tell people I didn't come here, I'm from here. I grew up in DeKalb County, attended school in DeKalb, and I devoted my life to DeKalb. I'm making my community safe by joining the DeKalb County Police Department. I'm a 28-year veteran from DeKalb. I so strongly believe in what we do and what we stand for that I made, my kids became law enforcement officers in DeKalb. It's time for us to bring back respect, integrity, truth. It's unfortunate that we, in the past, we've had candidates to run for sheriff and say they're going to fight out corruption, but when they get into places, it's also, all of a sudden, there's no corruption. So it's time for us to move DeKalb forward. Let's bring back some experience, but let's bring back honesty and trust. I want to make DeKalb a place that we can call home. DeKalb used to be considered the premier place to live. Now we're the most stricken places, crime stricken.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Mobley. And then we have listed on the ballot as Ruth the Truth Stringer. So Ms. Stringer, 2 minutes on the clock and the floor is yours.
Hello, I am Ruth the Truth Stringer. And let me explain that name. I did receive that name from ended up being a general. He was a lieutenant colonel when he gave me that name when I was in the Marine Corps. So that's how I came up with that nickname. I'm Ruth the Truth Stringer. I've been in DeKalb County for about 32 years now. I've been married, my husband, Jimmy Stringer, we've been married for 36 years. We have 4 children. All of our children graduated from DeKalb. My son, Jimmy, is a medical physicist up in Ohio. He's on the front lines fighting this COVID epidemic. My daughter, Selena, is a biologist. She's also in the lab fighting. I have another daughter who is a law enforcement officer and a son who is into computer science. That's my family. I am a United States Marine. I serve this country well. I am a decorated Marine. I have 2 meritorious medals and a conduct medal. I started with the sheriff's office in 1990. I had options. I could have went to the police department. I could have went to the U.S. Marshals, but I did not. I went to the sheriff's office and I stayed there for 30 years because I am a loyal person. I hone my craft. I am a decorated officer at that sheriff's office. I started from detention officer 1 and worked my way up to major. I was great at what I did there, so great that the chief judge, sheriff, was suspended by Governor Nathan Deal, looked throughout the whole county and selected me to act as the interim sheriff, which I did. As I served as interim sheriff, I had an opportunity to look at some contracts and look at a few things that I wanted to change. Changes need to be made in that sheriff's office. Anyone who can look at those contracts and say they are just is not a person that you want in office. I'm Ruth the Truth Stringer, and I'm here to make a change.
All right, thank you, Ms. Stringer. So we're now going to move on to some questions. And I'm going to state the question and the time allowed to respond. If you need me to repeat the question when it comes your turn, just let me know. I'm happy to do that. But I'm going to assume that, I can get away with only having to say the question once. And we are going to reverse order with this on this question and go up the ballot. So we're going to start with Ms. Stringer. So everyone's going to have 1.5 minutes to respond to this question. And it is, what are some critical issues that the sheriff is facing, and what would you do to tackle them? Ms. Stringer, 1:30.
Okay, I'm not going to discuss the pandemic because, of course, that's what's in front of us and obvious. The sheriff is facing, as I said before, one is the hardening of the courthouse, the security there because of the building up of the city of Decatur. Have to harden that courthouse and the security. It's not if something's going to happen down there, it's when it happens, and we have to be ready. Right now, the sheriff's office is not in a position to handle that. The next thing the sheriff needs to look at is, as I said, the Second Amendment rights. People are now, because of what just happened with the recent shooting, you're going to have more folks walking around with automatic weapons, sidearms, and it's perfectly legal. They're going to be walking around with them in plain view. The officers need to be trained to deal with that. They have never been trained to deal with that in mass scale, and we need to get in and we need to train the officers so that when somebody's talking with their hands with the automatic weapon on their arm, the officer doesn't shoot them for practicing their Second Amendment right. The next thing is we have to deal with the staffing. Those officers need to be put under a merit system, their jobs need to be protected, and their salaries need to be increased. It's very important for the sheriff's office to take care of the employees and bring more people in. Law enforcement is going to become critical in this next phase in DeKalb County history because of the unemployment we're about to face. And as one scientist put it, we're getting ready to face the darkest winter in our history.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Stringer. All right, and we're going to move back up to Mr. Mobley with 1:30 on the clock. And the floor is yours.
All right. Sheriff office, along with all law enforcement agencies around the country, we're facing attrition. We're never going to be able to keep employees if the DeKalb County Commissioners doesn't come up with a better comprehensive plan. Right now, we have insurance and pension. We're charging people $1,200 a month just for insurance and pension. We can't afford to keep employees because they're going to other agencies that are paying money. Second, the budget. We got to do something better with the budget as far as our training. We outsource our training for the DeKalb County Sheriff Office to other regional academies. Why can't we split the cost with the police department, send our deputies to the DeKalb County Police Department so they could better serve the community? Yes, the jail, the sheriff office do man the jail, the courts, and serve civil papers, but it's so much more that need to be done because we don't have enough law enforcement officers. We need to start working together. And unfortunately, those guys are not trained as well as the police department because they're not trained the same. It's time for us to cut that barrier, start working together, and save the county money. We can save the taxpayer money by training together, by sending them to one academy. Third, we have to bring in trained professionals inside the jail. Crisis 180. We have to start dealing with our mental health patients when they come in so they can better prepare themselves when they leave.
All right, thank you very much. See, and again, just let me know if you need the question repeated. I'm happy to do that. Sheriff Maddox, we're gonna move on to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Will you mind repeating just one time for me, please? I'm sorry.
Not at all. So what are critical issues that are facing the sheriff or sheriff's office, and what would you do to tackle them?
Well, the most critical thing now in this issue is number one is this COVID-19, making sure that those inmates are safe as well as making sure the officers are safe. And we're not just talking about from the COVID-19 itself, but we're talking about for mental issues, anxiety as it kicks in. And what we've done is made sure that we have counseling in place, that we have ministers in place, that if they should need counseling, need to seek or reach out to someone, that they can do that. We want to make sure that they are all safe when they go home, giving them education and training how to clean themselves prior to going into the home. But also we want to make sure it's about trust. We got to build the trust with the community. That's going to make greater things for us at the sheriff's office, manpower allocation, of course, and what we've already done is we've already built the recruitment. We have 92 applicants right now standing by to wait to take a PEB test. Also the crisis intervention. We have been trained. We have a 2-week course, a mandatory course on crisis intervention so that we won't have to have an incident again, such as Mr. Hill that was shot and killed by the DeKalb officer because of the mental illness that he had. So we are well aware of this. We're handling a pandemic. And again, I will say again that I am in a situation where no other sheriff has handled a situation like this. We have no COVID at all in the jail. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And then moving on to Mr. Jones. See, see. Same thing. We have 1 minute and 30 seconds on the clock, and the floor is yours.
Well, yes, I'm not going to take the time and be repetitious. You know, I agree with a lot of things that have been said here. You know, direct relationship as far as stabilizing agency when they need some type of merit system in place in order to protect them and their jobs. We've been looking at, you know, bringing in a union to stabilize not just the sheriff's office, but to also stabilize law enforcement as a whole in the community. And we also, when we look at the serious situations that we face in this county, and we view that we need to get out here and help with the pending police calls that are pending. We need to improve the security at the courthouse. We need to improve the security at the jail, and also address some quality of life issues, things that we have in our community. And, you know, one of the things that caused me great concerns is that, you know, we hear a lot of talk about sex trafficking and the sex trafficking going on across the United States. But when I sit here and I look at my opponent, whose business partner runs the largest strip club operation, you know, in the state of Georgia, you know, it causes me great concern to have somebody with those ties controlling the sheriff's office. And as your sheriff, we're going to make sure that those ties are cut from the individuals. We're going to make sure that we work with the community and the courts to help with our mental health, and also help those women that have been forced into that sort of lifestyle and change things.
All right. Thank you very much. Before we move on to Antonio Johnson, since there's brought up about a business partner who runs a strip club, I'm not familiar enough with the candidates to know who that was referred to, but if someone wants to raise their hand and respond to that, they're welcome to. Okay. Well, moving on. Sorry. Do what?
I'll be clear with it. You know, Melanie Max is being heavily supported by Thomas Brown. And Thomas Brown, business partner, operates the largest strip club operation in Georgia.
Okay, all right. So then, Sheriff Maddox, if you'd like to take, let's see, like, 30 seconds to respond to that, you're welcome to.
Yes, sir. Just to clear up again, I took office on December 1st, 2019. And my associations or affiliation has nothing to do with my decision or my ability to run that sheriff office the way I have been running. I've also been connected to individuals such as Doreen Carter, State Representative, Elena Parent, State Senator, who's supporting and or endorsing me, Michelle Pencapa, which is the Tucker City Council members, John Hurst, the mayor of Brookhaven, Leanne Levitan, the former DeKalb CEO. So my connections are, again, I have no idea as to what he's talking about. I can only speak for what took place on December 1st of 2019. I am my own sheriff, my own brain, and I run the agency. And my commitment is to the citizens of DeKalb County who will put me in office and are the only ones that can take me out. I'm committed to them and no one.
Thank you very much. All right, then moving on with the question to Mr. Antonio Johnson, and I'll just repeat the question for everyone's benefit, but what are some critical issues that the sheriff's office is facing, and what would you do to tackle them? And so that was 1 minute and 30 seconds on the clock to respond, and the floor is yours.
Yes. It's over 100 vacancies in the DeKalb County Jail, detention officers, deputies, and that's really important. The sheriff, we need to make sure that we are ready to.
Oh, I think we lost Mr. Johnson while he's giving his answer. All right, well, let's see. If he joins in, we'll restart and let him pick up with that question. And so now we're gonna move on to, let's see. Making sure he didn't pop back on. Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, I just had an internet failure. I apologize. We had a storm.
No worries. So I'll just, so I'll put a minute and 30 back on the clock and let you start that answer.
Yes. DeKalb County Jail have a lot of vacancies that we need to fill, close to 100. And that's very important for the staffing to be up to par for the inmate safety, not just for the inmate, but for the civilians that work there also. So that's one thing that we need to take care of. The next thing is we need to really work with other municipalities, law enforcement municipalities, to try to reduce crime on the street and also gang crime, which will be coming into the jail once you make those arrests on the streets of DeKalb County. So the DeKalb County Sheriff is very responsible for not just working with the municipalities on the streets, but also making sure we classify those gang members once they get in jail. And Ms. Stringer said something that's very important, that courthouse security. For me being reassigned to revamp the Fulton County court system after the Brian Nichols shooting, that is very important. So I concur with what she said about courthouse security. We cannot turn a blind eye on courthouse security.
All right, thank you very much. So then next we're gonna move on to Mr. Golden. And if you need the question repeated, just let me know. Let's see.
The first thing that needs to be addressed is the mental health issue in our jail. I will elevate a mental health professional to the executive level to address the broad spectrum of mental health issues that invade the criminal justice system. The next thing we need to talk about is the mold in the jail. That issue still has not been properly addressed, and no one at this point in time has even come up with a conclusion on how it's going to be repaired. Next is recruitment, retention, and training. It's already been discussed about that. What I want to do is offer educational incentive and residential incentives for people to become employed in the DeKalb County Jail. And then last but not least, what I want to do is a transportation system where we can send paddy wagons to the local police agencies. We're going to have separate the county into quadrants, and we're going to have paddy wagons to go out to the scene of the arrest and transport inmates to the jail. This will allow police officers to get back to doing their job, protecting and serving the citizens of DeKalb County. We need to make sure that we are safe and that our officers are accessible when they're needed. And I think a transportation network is the way to get that done.
All right, thank you. Let's see, and Ms. Champion, same question in a minute and 30 seconds.
I'm disturbed, not as just a candidate, but as a tax-paying citizen of this county for over 50 years. I went to my mailbox this afternoon and I had, the letter was did not have a return address on it, but inside of that letter was a court injunction on our present acting sheriff, where they have served papers of not paying a bill, her bills, a bill of a total of $243,000. I think the sheriff department has a budget of $90 million or over. Now, my thing as a taxpayer, not as a candidate, but as a taxpayer, this injunction was served December the 3rd. I think she said she took office December the 1st. It has on there Zales, Home Depot, and a student loan. If you can't manage your budget at home, how are you going to manage $90 million as a sheriff of DeKalb County? I have a problem with that as a taxpaying citizen, and I have a problem with that as a candidate. Maybe you can clear this up. I hope you can. But
Okay.
I am very disturbed.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Champion. And then Sheriff Maddox, if you want to take a few seconds to respond to that. So those are specific allegations.
Yeah, yes, sir, if you don't mind. Thank you so much. First of all, let me just say that is quite simple. I went to college. I was a single mom and went to college, and I graduated, you know, with the support of the community and my dad. I graduated with my bachelor's, and as like any other, probably one of the few millions of individuals that's sitting around with student loan debt. That's what it is student loan debt that I have been fighting, and I'm glad that brought up, because as we see here, this is the paperwork, stacked paperwork that I have been fighting for the longest about student loan and the debt that is owed on there. So as far as that is concerned, I am in litigation. I have legal counsel that's handling such. And let me just clear this up. Even with that said, I am the only candidate that's handled a multi-million-dollar budget twice. And to this date, I am still handling it and handled it successfully. Now, I am a good steward of taxpayers' dollars, and I know how to handle it. And it shows one thing, that I will fight, and I will continue to fight and not have the taxpayers to pay for anything that is not theirs, as the same way that I'm not going to pay for anything that's not mine. I have a bachelor's and 2 masters, and all I'm saying is that, do I owe some debt? Yes, I do. But do they have proof of what I owe? No, they do not. So I am a good steward of taxpayers' money. And again, I have done a great and successful job, and I will continue to do so. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And then
According to the
no,
Superior.
I'm sorry, Ms. Champion, your time was up, and this is not a debate. As I said in the beginning, this is a chance for us to get to know the candidates. So then we're going to move on to Mr. Dennis with the question that is, what are critical issues that the sheriff's office is facing, and what would you do to tackle them? With 1 minute and 30 seconds to respond.
Yes, currently the critical issues that, as the DeKalb County Sheriff, you're federally mandated by the federal government to make certain that the jail is staffed. And currently they're not staffed. They're 200 officers short. So 92 applicants doesn't even put a dent in over 200 people that you're short working the jail. Second is the morale. The morale at the DeKalb County Jail is at an all-time dismal low. And it's low because of the pay. They don't pay. The top upper echelon of the sheriff's office, your majors and your assistant chiefs and chiefs are making all the big money, and you have deputies sleeping in their vehicles in the parking lot. So that's a big issue that I want to tackle. And second of all, we need a sheriff that's going to come in and do the right thing by the people. Now, the sheriff stated that she took office December 1st, but she stated that she got the deputies a pay raise. How did you give the deputies a pay raise when you started December 1st? And that was approved by the Board of Commissions in October.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dennis. And then the next question, and just shorten down to the response time here to 1 minute. And we're going to go back down. So we're going to start at the top of the ballot and move back down. But, there's been a lot of discussion about the budget and about money. But with the pandemic, we are facing a budget crunch. State revenues are down. Our economy may be contracting for an extended period of time. So how do you propose to do the job and deliver on some of your campaign promises, given that you may face a tightening budget? So Mr. Dennis, we're going to start with you on that one.
Certainly. I understand that the budget is tight, but we do have the money currently at the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office. It's when you bring transparency to show when you got your budget, where you're spending your budget on, the money's there. Instead of calling an outside auditor, a private auditor, and put them up in hotels and let them to do the budget with pen and paper, I would certainly turn that over to the county auditor and let them come over and audit the books. I have nothing to hide, and I would certainly be transparent so the people of DeKalb County can see when we get our budget, what we're spending our budget on and what we will continue to spend our budget on. So transparency is a big thing. The money's there. It's going to continue to be there. We just need to cut the fat that we're spending the money on.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dennis. And then Ms. Champion, so the question is, with the prospect of a tightening budget, how would you propose to do the job and deliver on any campaign promises? So you have a minute to respond.
Number one, that jail is self-sustained. If that money was spent properly, it will be enough money to handle the jail situation without even dipping into any other tax-paying taxes to enhance that jail, and it's expensive. The biggest problem there is we have money going everywhere but where it's supposed to go. I was with the Dub and Brown campaign also. In fact, he was assassinated because he's gonna take the cover off of all of this. In fact, I was supposed to be in the car with him that night. And this is why I might sound angry, because nothing has changed. It's as if he died for nothing. Nothing has changed. It has gotten worse since his assassination because of what he was gonna take the cover off of. The cover is still on, and I intend in less than 2 years to take the cover off of all of that corruption and put the money in the right place where it's supposed to be from these hard-working taxpayer people. Give them what they're paying for. It's not going to be done with what we have in there now.
All right, thank you, Ms. Champion. So, and then we're going to move on down to Mr. Golden with 1 minute on the clock, and the floor is yours.
With the current issue involving more than likely tightening the budget, we have to look at where the biggest expense that comes from $90 million budget the sheriff has. Almost $60 million is eaten up by jail operations. And clearly that's going to be a place where some of those expenses are going to have to be cut. Salaries and the medical contract, the mental health contract, all the other issues that come up with that $60 million are going to have to be addressed. And the way I'm going to address that is with an audit. Right now they have an overview that's done by the county auditor. There needs to be an audit, and the audit needs to be done accurately, as well as bringing law enforcement professionals in to conduct a internal audit, an assessment of the entire process. We've got to look at everything that goes on in that, especially in that jail operation, because almost 70%, 75% of the budget is eaten up by jail operations. So that's where the budget needs to be looked at.
All right, thank you very much. Let's see, and Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Let's see, so 1 minute on the clock, and the floor is yours.
Yes, the sheriff is a constitutional officer, and he or she has the responsibility to make sure whatever budget he or she received from the Board of Commissioners, that sheriff needs to make sure that he or she purge that budget, see what's important to make sure you run that operation of the sheriff office properly. And also, you cannot turn a blind eye to crime. We have to run that jail. We're going to have to classify those inmates properly. We're going to have to take care of the mental ill, and we're going to have to secure that courthouse. So it'll behoove the sheriff to make sure, build a great relationship with the Board of Commissioners, purge that budget, and make sure you put using that funding that you receive from the Board of Commissioners appropriately.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. See, Mr. Jones. So we have the same question with 1 minute on the clock. Oh.
The thing here, Mr. Smith, thank you for the time. I was
yeah, you were muted, so okay. So there we go.
So the thing here, I worked in DeKalb County during some trying times and some tight budget crunches with Leonard Leviton, with Vernon Jones, with Burl Ellis, and as well as Lee May. And I also worked directly at that sheriff's office on the executive level from 2008 to 2014. And I was able to look at the budget, and the sheriff during that time would give back somewhere close to $1 million every year from his budget. And with that being said, as far as the officers, if they're showing the respect, they're showing the dignity, they treat it right, they'll do more for less, knowing that a payday is coming for them. We don't join this job thinking that we're gonna become millionaires like some have. We don't join this job thinking that, you know, it's gonna be a pot of gold. We do it because for the love of the people and to serve public servants.
All right, thank you very much. Let's see, and then Sheriff Maddox. Let's see. Make sure you're coming off mute here. There we go. So,
okay, that was a lot. Just can you just one more time for me? Because
sure, absolutely. Let's see. So, you know, given the pandemic and where we are with the budget and the contracting economy, there may be a budget crunch coming up. So how do you propose to do the job, operate the sheriff's office, and deliver on campaign promises, given that you will likely face a tightening budget?
Well, actually, we already have a tightening budget. And I just wanted to say, when another candidate said that the budget or the raise was approved in October, I started DeKalb County Sheriff's Office in June, so I was there. And because of my relationship with Michael Thurman, the CEO, as well as the other commissioners, I had the opportunity to speak with them to make sure that those officers are included on that 4% raise that I was responsible for assisting with, because normally the sheriff's office is not included in on that. So I just wanted to clear that up. And as far as tightening the budget, what we're doing is called doing more with less. As you know, the biggest part of the operation is the DeKalb County Jail. And we have to make sure that it functions properly and efficiently. And we have already done so, and we're in the process. The CEO has already assisted, along with the DeKalb financial officer, has assisted us with grants, as federal grants, to make sure that we have money to keep that going during this COVID-19.
All right. Thank you, Sheriff Maddox. Let's see, and then Mr. Mobley, same question with 1 minute. Hang on, you're on mute. Let's see.
Do I get to respond?
Can you hear me?
Hang on 1 second, Mr. Mobley. Well, Mr. Dennis, I think you had kind of erased that initial allegation that she didn't have anything to do with the raise. So, and we're trying not to have this be a debate platform. So, you'll have a few seconds to wrap up at the end. If you'd like to use that time to respond, then you can. Let's see. So, Mr. Mobley, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, I'm okay with.
All right, then we have 1 minute for you.
All right, let's go back to as far as the budget, the raise was across the board for all of the employees. So that 4% came across the board for everyone. I am a former employee of DeKalb County. Second, we have things going on in that jail as far as iPads being issued out to inmates, yoga instructors being brought in for inmates. That's unnecessary money being spent. Just the wrapping of the cars, the sheriff cars with the white wrapping, is an additional $750 to $800 per car. We need to get away with all that. Let's go to a plain, solid color car. Let's get away with the iPads. Let's get away with the yoga coming in for the inmates. It's time for us to get down to the bare minimum. Let's start putting DeKalb County citizens and the county first. Employees, taking care of the employees, making sure the employees got adequate raises and adequate health care. And we're going to be able to retain our employees. We got to get back down to the basics.
All right, thank you very much. Let's see, and then Ms. Stringer.
Okay, you hear me?
Yes. All right.
Okay.
So 1 minute.
The first thing I would tackle would be the contracts. You have to, it should not matter who the consultant is, whether it's a former sheriff or anyone. You need to look at the contracts and We need to get the best contract at the cheapest rate for the citizens and the inmates. That's one. The next thing we need to do is that commissary. There is no reason for an outside vendor to be operating that commissary. That's millions of dollars a year. The money from the commissary should go back into the inmate fund, and it should buy those mattresses, those uniforms, any medication they can't afford. That burden should be taken off the taxpayers. There is no reason for that second party to be profiting from that commissary. The sheriff's office is perfectly capable and able, as we did before, to going back to running the commissary. Coming, as I said, it's going to be one of the darkest winters ever. The taxpayers are going to be frustrated. They're paying their taxes, and they don't need this unnecessary burden on them that the sheriff's office can take off. Once again, look at those contracts, get the best deal, and put that commissary back in the hands, money back in the hands of the sheriff's office instead of going to a private vendor.
All right.
That's what I would do.
Thank you, Ms. Stringer. So for this last, we're gonna wrap up. We're just gonna give everyone a short 30 seconds to tell us just anything else they want to conclude with, and if you want to give your website address or any contact information, you can include that at this time. But because there have been some specific issues raised in this segment, I'm going to let Sheriff Maddox go last since she is the incumbent. So she'll be able to address anything that is raised during this segment. So we're going to move, kind of flipping this order around, back up the ballot. So Ms. Stringer, we're going to start with you for a little 30-second conclusion.
Okay, I am Ruth the Truth Stringer, and I'm running for sheriff because I've been in the sheriff's office for 30 years. I bring to you transformation, transparency, and truth. I want to transform that agency into something that the citizens can once again be proud of. I have transparency. I am an open book. There will be nobody standing behind me telling me what I can and cannot say. And the truth is something that I am rooted in. I am a United States Marine. I have integrity, honor, and I will bring that to the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office.
All right, thank you very much. And the same, let's see, Mr. Mobley, you're on. Okay, Mr. Mobley.
Yes.
So just that 30-second conclusion, and if you want to pitch a website or anything, you can do that in this segment.
Right. I just want to start off by saying insanity, and everybody knows the definition of insanity. We got to do better. We got to thrust our sheriff office into the new millennium. We've operated in the old fashion for so long. It's time to move forward. We got to take advantage of some of the grant money out there that's never been taken advantage of from the sheriff office. I can be reached at carlmobley4sheriff.com, number 4. Let's move forward. Let's move our county forward.
Great, thank you very much. See, and then we're going to let Sheriff Maddox do her conclusion after everyone else. And then so we're going to move on to Mr. Jones. Let's see.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Smith, and thank you, Pangborn Valley, for hosting this forum tonight. What I would like to say is I'm running for sheriff because it's time for a change. It's time to put proven leadership back into DeKalb County Sheriff's Office. I have served DeKalb County faithfully and loyally and earned my stripes by serving with boots on the ground and worked in various different capacities and have been awarded commendations from the chiefs to go back as far as Bobby Burgess. And where we stand now is an area that we need a proven law enforcement and crime fighter in our agency, and one that's going to stand on their own and not have somebody pulling their strings from behind. I care and respect and love all these candidates, and I wish them all the best. You can go to my website at www.votekylejones.com and see why I'm the best person for your sheriff.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Jones. And then let's see, Mr. Johnson, we've got 30 seconds on the clock.
Thank you, DeKalb County citizens, for allowing me to speak today. My name is Antonio Block Johnson. That's what's on the ballot. I am a 34-year veteran law enforcement. I'm also a 21-year reserve, Air Force Reserve retiree. I am the only candidate that have served 3 4-year terms as a department head have managed multi-million-dollar budgets and been responsible for multi-million-dollar budgets. So please go to my website, www.johnson4DeKalbSheriff.com, and find out a little more about me. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And then now moving on to Mr. Golden. Mr. Golden, you have 30 seconds for a conclusion.
I appreciate the opportunity to come before you tonight. My name is Ted Golden. I have 34 years of law enforcement experience, 30 years a resident of DeKalb County. I'm blessed to have 3 adult sons who serve in law enforcement. One is a captain here at the police department. The other 2 follow me to DEA. I think it's important that we recognize that I am the only federal law enforcement officer on this ballot. I understand what it takes to do the job. I operated 2 closed information systems across 4 states and 21 cities with over 500 people accessing that information every day. I stand here as your candidate for sheriff here in DeKalb County. You can reach me by website is www.tedgoldenforsheriff.com. On Facebook, tedgoldenforsheriff.com. We need your vote and your support. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. See, and then we're going to go on to Ms. Geraldine Champion. Ms. Champion, 30 seconds for concluding remarks.
I have a house full of police officers. My son, my only child, is the only police helicopter pilot in Fulton County. I'm well known in DeKalb County for the last 50 years. I will make that, I promise, I don't promise, I guarantee you, I will make that sheriff department the example of this whole state in less than 2 years. You can get me at on my email address at chamgral@comcast.net, or my telephone number is 770-987-1006. I'll be glad to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Champion. And then Mr. Dennis, let's see. There we go, you're muted. So then 30 seconds for concluding remarks.
Yes, I'm Harold Dennis, and I'm running for sheriff of DeKalb County. I have over 17 years of law enforcement, and I'm also currently an airline pilot. I'm giving up my career to come back to serve you, the citizens of DeKalb County, because I have the heart for the people of DeKalb County, and I will serve the people of DeKalb County. I'm not in it for money. I'm in it to change my community for the best. So if you want the best, elect Harold Dennis for DeKalb County. And you can go to my website at www.harolddennisforsheriff.com. Thank you so much, Mr. Smith. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you very much. And then Sheriff Maddox, 30 seconds. Let's see, you're still, there we go. 30 seconds for concluding remarks. And if you want to respond to anything raised, you're free to, but if not, that's fine too.
Well, first of all, as I said, I am the sheriff of DeKalb County, and thank you for the opportunity to serve as your sheriff. Together, we have worked and tackled major issues, including the COVID-19 crisis. And I just ask you to join me on all levels, as well as the other leaders that are supporting me and supporting my candidacy, and continue to work. You can go to my website on Instagram at Sheriff Melody Maddox, or my Facebook page, sheriffmelodymaddox.com. And again, I make my own decisions. I am the sheriff, and I would love to continue to be your sheriff. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, candidates, for taking the time to talk with us and for hanging in there. This ran longer than we anticipated, but we appreciate getting all the information from everyone in your answers. And again, we're gonna post this up on YouTube, so other folks who weren't able to attend will be able to view it. But that was gonna conclude our candidate forum. And just again, thank you very much for taking the time to spend with us this evening. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.